All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. We came into yesterday's AFC Championship game talking about the quarterbacks, but it was the defenses that reigned supreme as the Baltimore Ravens were unable to get past the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, what if I had told you that the Ravens defense would shut out the Chiefs for the second half? And then on top of that, they would hold Kansas City to 17 points. Most people would have been like, you know what? Baltimore is going to the Super Bowl, but clearly that was not the case. You look at this Chiefs defense against Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense, and Kansas City from the opening kickoff just frustrated Lamar all day long. He was just 20 of 37 passing for 272, one touchdown, one interception, one fumble, and he was sacked four times. And honestly, aside from being sacked four times by Kansas City, Lamar Jackson was harassed all afternoon long, and that is a credit to this Chiefs defense and their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. The Ravens in defeat, they're clearly going to sit back and look at the missed opportunities that they had yesterday. That big play to Zay Flowers and late in the third quarter, which was followed by a penalty by the young man. And then right after that, um, Baltimore's knocking at the door literally, and Flowers fumbles the ball at the 1 yard line and it's recovered by Kansas City in the end zone. So much momentum was lost on that series of plays for Baltimore. It's one of those where, this is something that I had just talked about Saturday, in regards to the NFL's touchback rule. And I said, one thing that you got to look at, a lot of receivers, especially now, are looking to extend the play, dive for the end zone to get that touchdown. And they're at a vulnerable position. And credit to the defenses, credit to the defensive coaches, but these defensive players are getting better and they're getting smarter and they're going right for that football. We saw it in the divisional round with Miko Hardman for the Kansas City Chiefs when the ball was knocked loose out of his hands as Kansas City was about to go in for a score. And then, of course, we saw it yesterday by this Chiefs defense flipping the script and doing it to the Baltimore Ravens. You look at it, there's a lot of things that you could say about this game. A lot of questionable calls and questionable no calls yesterday by the officials. One thing for me, late in the first half, when you look at the personal foul on Kyle Van Noy of Baltimore, in my opinion, you could have made a case for offsetting penalties on both Baltimore and Kansas City in that situation. There was a lot of chirping, pushing, and shoving by Travis Kelsey and one of the Baltimore defenders. And then, of course, Van Noy didn't help the situation when he made the helmet contact with Kelsey, and then of course the refs were going to blow the whistle. But I feel like Kelsey baited him into it, and it's one of those where if I feel like in that situation, if you're the official, if you want to clean this thing up, have an offsetting penalty. That was a big penalty. Got Kansas City out of their own end zone. They moved the ball downfield and they were able to get a field goal just before the first half ended. And that right there was huge. The roughing the passer call on Jadavian Clowney. And the thing is, what got the penalty was the fact that Clowney did make contact with the helmet of Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes did a good job selling it because, no disrespect, but Patrick Mahomes sometimes flops, but he knows how to sell it for the officials. And you figure the marquee players, they're going to get those calls. That was a big call right there. There were a couple of instances where defensive pass interference could have been called on Kansas City. It wasn't. One was on tight end Blake Lightly for Baltimore, and then on that interception by Lamar Jackson in the end zone, there was contact. At the same time, it's one of those where I'm not going to give Lamar Jackson a pass on that play because the ball shouldn't have been thrown in triple coverage. So it's one of those where those calls and those plays, they did have a big bearing on the outcome of this game. But you look at it, Kansas City dominated the first half, and they really could have easily been up by more than 10 points. And I think, it was very important for them on their first possession to go right down the field and score a touchdown and take that crowd out of the game at M&T Bank Stadium. That was huge for Kansas City, definitely for their psyche. And you could clearly see that they felt good about that because they expected to do it. You just think about it. Kansas City was able to flip the script yesterday. Why? Because last Sunday we saw Buffalo dominate the time of possession as they held the football for 37 minutes. Kansas City did it yesterday. And again, Lamar Jackson can't hurt you if he's on the sidelines watching. And that's what he was doing for a good chunk of this game, especially in the first half yesterday. But at the end of the day, at this time of the year, big time players show up and make big time plays. And that's what Kansas City was able to do yesterday. Travis Kelsey had 11 catches for a buck 16 and that touchdown in the first quarter. Patrick Mahomes was 30 of 39 passing for 241 and a touchdown. And more importantly, Kansas City won the turnover battle 3-0. And anytime that you win the turnover battle, especially in the postseason, more often than not, you're going to win the game and you're going to be able to advance. Now, I talked about some missed opportunities for the Baltimore Ravens. I talked about some questionable play calling by the officials. But at the end of the day, this Ravens team still has a lot of growing. More importantly, their quarterback still has a lot of growing to do. For some people, they were hopeful that Lamar Jackson had finally turned the corner in January when the Ravens were able to come back and beat, or just beat rather. I take that back because they never trailed against Houston. But when they were able to beat the Houston Texans last Saturday at home, a lot of people were hopeful and expected that now Lamar Jackson was turning the corner. But once again, the issues that have come up for Lamar Jackson in elimination games for the Baltimore Ravens in the postseason showed up once again. It's basically, the opposing defenses are daring Lamar Jackson to beat them from the pocket with his arm. We saw it against the Chargers, the Titans, the Buffalo Bills, and of course, yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs just imposed their will, and when I say impose their will, they did it defensively. I know that a lot of credit is going to go to Patrick Mahomes for this game because of who he is. But this game was won by the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion. They imposed their will. They set the tone. They said, not on my watch. And at the end of the day, Baltimore was never able to answer that. When you think about the Ravens, their identity is running the football. Yesterday, the Ravens only had 16 rush attempts for 81 yards. It's one of those where they had 37 pass attempts, 16 runs. That's not the balance that we've been accustomed to seeing from Baltimore all season long. Whereas on the flip side, Kansas City attempted 39 passes to 32 rushes. And you look at this team, the Chiefs have morphed from being an explosive offensive team with a complementary defense that they had 5 or 6 years ago to now they're a team that has one of the best defenses in the National Football League. And Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, is making a case as far as being one of the NFL's all-time defensive coordinators. You think about what he was able to do during his time as a defensive coordinator of the New York Giants, and how instrumental he was when they upset the previously undefeated New England Patriots in Super Bowl number 42. The Chiefs just answered the bell, and it's to their credit because this group of Chiefs had never won away from Arrowhead, with the exception of the Super Bowl. We saw last Sunday they went to Western New York and beat the Buffalo Bills, and then coming back to yesterday and knocking off the Baltimore Ravens. And that's a hard ask for anybody because you're asking the Chiefs to go into two of the most hostile environments for a road team in the National Football League and win. And the Chiefs never wavered from their game plan. They went out there, executed, did what they had to do, and that is a big reason why about 13 days from now they're gonna have an opportunity for their third Lombardi Trophy since 2019. So you just look at it, and this is a fourth trip to the Super Bowl for Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and company. And of course, if they do win on the 11th of February, they're going to be in some rare air because this is going to be the first team in nearly 2 decades. You got to go back to the 2004 New England Patriots to find the last team that was able to repeat as Super Bowl champions. Now, the Chiefs did come close in 2020, but they ran into a very game and difficult Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that dominated them that Sunday afternoon in West Florida. But again, for me, I'm shocked because I really thought that coming out, I would have expected the Chiefs to have been favored or at least open as favorites over the San Francisco 49ers. It's actually the Niners who have come out as the favorites. They opened as a 1 point favorite. Now they're 1.5. For me, I'm just saying that because of what the Chiefs have done, what they've accomplished, and I feel like there are more question marks, in my opinion, right now for the Niners heading into this game than there are for the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, a lot of people are going to sit back and say, you know what, you just don't bet against Patrick Mahomes this time of the year. And honestly, for what it's worth, you really don't, because with the exception of Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, there hasn't been a quarterback that has gone against him and this team that have been able to say that they've been able to beat them in the postseason. Yes, a lot of people have come close, but coming close and getting it done are two different things. So I look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have a good opportunity to win this game. I think it starts with their defense. And like I said last night after the 49ers came back and beat the Detroit Lions, the Niners are going to have a chance as well, but I think they're going to have to start fast, and they're going to have to start fast in all phases of the game. And that's something that we have not seen so far from the 49ers in the postseason. They've come back and won, excuse me. And I think that is a testament to the character of this team. But Patrick Mahomes is not a quarterback that you want to spot a lead to and think you're going to come back and beat him. So if you're San Francisco, you've got to start fast. And I think it starts with your offense because Kansas City's defensive line is creating a lot of pressure. And by them just creating the pressure up front, it's opening up things for those linebackers to get to the quarterback. It's opening up things for those linebackers to go out there and stop the run game. And then you look at the way that this defense is flying around the football. They can be had, yes, defensively, because we did see Buffalo run the football effectively against Kansas City 2 weeks ago. We did see Buffalo have opportunities for big plays in the passing game, but having those opportunities and executing are two different things. And that's the thing. Like I said, after Kansas City beat Buffalo a couple last Sunday, you got to go out there and play your A+ game if you're going to beat this team, which means you have to be flawless. If the 49ers can do that, they've got a shot to win. Otherwise, Kansas City's going to take home that Lombardi trophy once more. For the Baltimore Ravens, easier said than done, but they've got to find a way to learn from this because, like the Buffalo Bills last Sunday, the stars were all aligned for Baltimore. You had the AFC Championship game at home. This is the furthest that you had gotten with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. You had one of the stingiest defenses in the National Football League. And when it's all said and done, you still couldn't get it done. Like I said, it comes down to Lamar Jackson. And unfortunately, until Lamar Jackson is able to show opposing defenses that he can beat them with his arm in the pocket in January, the Ravens are not going to take that next step as an organization. That is the key. So Lamar has to grow from this. Will he? I hope he does for his sake, because I mean, you're talking about a phenomenal talent, a phenomenal athlete at the quarterback position, more than likely is going to be the NFL's MVP this season. And he is very, very deserving of that honor. But when it's all said and done, especially at that position, at the quarterback position, it all comes down to what you can or cannot do in the month of January. And the fact that Lamar Jackson has a 2-4 record right now, that's what a lot of people are going to talk about. Lamar Jackson did show a lot of strides and a lot of improvements this year. The Baltimore Ravens as an organization did a good job of putting, more talent around him. Todd Monken, as the offensive coordinator, bringing in more explosiveness at the wide receiver position, like a Zay Flowers. You had a Blake Lively at tight end, and of course the return of Mark Andrews yesterday for the Baltimore Ravens. But it's got to come down to Lamar and his ability to try to take it to the next step. For the Kansas City Chiefs, it's one of those where you know what? They got a good shot next week. It's one of those where I said coming into this past weekend, it wouldn't have surprised me if either one of these four teams, regardless of the combination that we would have gotten for the Super Bowl, would have advanced. I picked Ravens and Niners. We got Chiefs and Niners. It's one of those for me coming into this season in the preseason. I did pick the Niners to get here. I had the Niners and the Jets, but it's one of those where Kansas City has more than a puncher's chance. As long as you got Mahomes and Andy Reid and company, you're never out of a game. So Kansas City really showed championship mettle over the last couple of weeks, going into hostile environments, which is something that they haven't had to do in the postseason. And they're taking the Hunt Trophy, um, excuse me, back to the heartland with them. So about 13 days from now, we're going to see if KC is able to repeat as Super Bowl champions. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.